I mean, I've never ran into somebody that's actually said that to me.
Right.
But props to you if you fucking do it. So, but I mean, I've never met somebody say that to me. And if you did, I'd probably smack them.
We are good to go if you are, my friend.
Already.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. This is another episode of the Scoped Exposure podcast. We travel down south to where everything is bigger, including the riffs, the muscles, and the bikes. And Andrew from I Am is joining me on the podcast today. Thanks so much for jamming with me.
No, yeah. Thanks for having me, my man. I appreciate it.
Of course. Andrew, I don't count this as a repeat guest moment as Andrew came on right when kind of COVID was hitting and shared his thoughts from a band's perspective. And we kind of did a montage-y episode. So that was with Emma from Dying Wish and Cameron Nunez. And we talked about a couple things. But Andrew's been on my list to get on the podcast to talk about some other topics and other things. But glad that we're doing this. Before we get super into it, Andrew, can you just tell the folks at home who might not know who you are, what you do in the band, and where you're based?
Yeah, I play in a band called I Am from Dallas, Texas, DFW area, whatever the fuck you want to call it, Texas. It don't matter. But yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah. And you guys I've seen some new music in the works as far as some studio stuff, and I would love to pick your brain about that. Before we get super into it, though, got to do the bev check. So recording this actually on the election night, so I haven't.
I realized that today as like you sent me a message before this, and I'm like looking at all my updates, and I'm like, yeah, it's election night and we're doing a podcast. Okay.
Yeah,
let's fucking do this.
Yeah, I think that there's some episodes that I recorded, even last week where I think that there might be some people who were encouraging people to go vote. So that's going to be interesting when I actually have to go and edit it. But all that aside, I went to a liquor mart and the guy recommended this. So it's a local Calgary brewery, but it's like a Fria's Passion Sour. So
nice.
They weren't making it anymore, and they're moving on to a different kind of sour. So it's been good, and I feel like I need some kind of harder bev on a night like tonight, no matter how things go. So
I always wondered how is it over there with that, like for y'all, since y'all are a different country. Is everybody as like into it as Americans?
Well, I think a lot of, people who have friends in the States will, often be like, hey, like we're watching, like make.
Yeah, you sympathize with them, you're like, you're there in spirit,
Yeah. But, like all that being said, there's definitely a lot of things where, certain political leaders, even in the Canadian sphere, are like doing things that are, almost copying Trump's homework, if that makes sense. So there's just lots of things where it's like,
I got you.
Yeah. So anyways, we'll get on to a rabbit hole if we do this. What are you sipping on over on your end?
I have a mug filled with Red Diamond sweet tea.
Ooh.
It is my favorite sweet tea, and you can so far I've only found it in Texas, but
interesting.
I'm sure there are other places, but
sweet tea is like pretty. Like that's not usually something that people either offer or is a go-to up here. So is that like just in the South or
that's probably my least favorite thing I like about touring is once you go like one state up from the South, it's no more sweet tea.
Oh, no.
And if it is, it's straight ass. Yeah, it's just water and sugar, and it's I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird how it's like mainly a South thing.
Yeah. I'm sure no one has ever thought about, everyone's going to default into what's the best part about touring. And you're like, oh, but Yeah, I never even thought about asking what's the worst part about touring for you, and for you, it's
Tea, sweet tea, man,
the
sweet tea. I can't.
the lack of access to sweet tea. Um,
Yeah, it's rough out here. You know, it's rough out here.
well, Andrew, I'm really excited to be chatting with you. I am came into my radar. I think I'm trying to remember what the year it was. Is when you guys were on tour with Acacia Strain and Left Behind. I want to say that was
That was
2018.
a 18. Yeah, that was 18 because
Yeah.
we had just recorded Hard to Kill. Yeah, we just recorded Hard to Kill and then did that Acacia Strain tour with Left Behind. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think you played a few songs off of that, but the album, or I don't think even
Yeah,
singles were
I
out
think we
at
only
that point.
played. No, yeah, we had just started playing Hard to Kill on that tour, and that was like the first new song we'd ever played.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty it's a pretty weird experience. I mean, I get it's for any band, I guess. Whenever you've been playing the same set for so long and you add something new into the mix, it feels good. It's exciting.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But that was
Yeah, so that was many moons ago. But ever since
oh yeah,
then, I am has been like on my radar as far as metal and like those kind of bands, and really you guys doing
Mhm.
things a little bit different. So before we get super into the sonic nature of the band,
Yeah.
I always ask my guests how they first got into heavy music. So let's go back
Mhm.
in time. Tell me about like the first couple records that you were discovering growing up, and how those things came to be for you.
Yeah. So I remember because I was always like, my mom is always listening to like grunge music and earlier new metal shit. So she was always cool. She showed me Linkin Park in my later years, and that was one of the biggest, like the best band at the time. Where I was like, oh shit, this is so sick. But like the first band where I heard that had any kind of like, I guess core essence, if you would say, it was who the fuck was it? Demon Hunter.
Oh,
Demon
okay.
Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Christian metal band. My dad showed me, and he had one CD, and I would sneak into his room and pop it in his CD player, and just like anytime he was at work, because I'd go there over the summers and just be there for the summer, so he wouldn't catch me doing a whole lot of shit, but
Yeah.
I'd always sneak in and listen to a Demon Hunter CD. And that was the first. Once I heard that, I was like, "There's music like that's this crazy." Like I didn't like screaming the whole time. Like I don't. This is crazy. I never heard anything like it besides Slipknot.
Right.
But to me, that was also different. I never like really lumped Slipknot in with like metal bands for some reason.
Oh,
Like it was more, yeah, it was more of like on that same realm of like Korn, Slipknot, you know, Linkin Park, all those bands I would like group together. But this was as a kid, so I didn't know anything other than that.
right.
The radio
Yeah.
songs that were played at the radio at the time.
Yeah.
And then whenever that came around, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it seems like new metal, even though it's kind of gone through the grapevine, or it's just had ebbs and flows as far as like it was super big,
Yeah.
kind of in the late '90s, early 2000s, and then like as far as active and new metal bands, like it's
Yeah.
very few and far between. But
Oh yeah.
there is forever this like imprint of new metal influence on uh first a handful of metalcore bands that come through the ringer these days, and just lots of other stuff as far as like you know making choruses and things like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's like you said, that trio of like Linkin Park, Korn,
Mm.
Slipknot, Limp Bizkit, like all of that, like really had a huge role to play as far as the heavy music they were all a part of nowadays.
Yeah, I mean it destroyed the grunge genre whenever that, because the grunge genre era it was such a short period of time, and then when new metal came around, it was just that was the new trend. That's what everybody turned to.
Yeah.
It's crazy how it's been up and down, not even with like it being popular, just with what it is. Because there's, I don't know, all of these bands today saying, "Oh, we're new metal." It just okay, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
Orthodox is a good band that incorporates it really well, though.
I
That's one
remember
band I will say.
when I was interviewing Adam, I was like, there's so many bands that are like, we're influenced by Slipknot, but like they sound like riff wise just insanely
Yeah.
Iowa vibes.
It's like,
for
all
sure.
right, bud, whatever you say, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm having flashbacks to there's a band from up here in Canada called Flashback, and they kind of were like this hardcore new metal kind of group, but now they're like full radio rock. Like I tell people it's like Linkin Park
nice.
worship. It's like
Yeah.
got the DJ turntables and everything. But their
Yeah.
guitar player was talking about how there's like different subgenres within new metal. There's like the radio rock,
Really?
like alternative new metal that you would listen to, and then there's
Yeah.
like the really like wacky Korn,
I guess,
Slipknot,
yeah.
like more metal like
Okay.
side. So you know,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the same with hardcore, is that some people just listen to the surface level, like, you know, core
Yeah.
music.
I mean, that's
but,
what I mean. The whole subgenre thing is
right.
it's just a whole mess of, you know, ladders of what things are.
Right. Yeah. And the deeper you dig, the more you find, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get
So
those crazy made up subgenres, chainsaw hacking, death metal, this genre of 10 bands.
right. Yeah. Well. Speaking of genres, let's fast forward a little bit to kind of how you first started with I Am. So, were you in projects beforehand, or was I Am kind of the first thing? Because even though we crossed paths in 2018, I think you guys started or at least announced around like 2015. So even 3 years prior to that. Um, so tell me about how I Am came to be, and just like the formation of that.
Yeah, I played in bands, or one band before this, and it was with the drummer, the original drummer and guitarist of I Am. But we just had this shitty band that nobody cared about, and we didn't really care about. Right. So we scrapped that, and then we started I Am, and then did it for 2 years, whatever. We weren't like trying to do anything crazy. We were just like, and it was all still so new to us. Like, I mean, that was the age where we were all finding out about bands, finding out about music, you know, and what we liked, what we didn't like. So, you know, it was all over the place. You know, we're just a couple of kids trying to make some cool music that were friends from high school, you know. And then shit happened. Took like 2 years where we just kind of didn't do anything, and then that's when we wrote Memento Mori, that first real EP. Gotcha. And so that's when we did put that out, and we're like, hey, people kind of give a shit. That's kind of cool. Let's do a tour. And then we did that. And we're like, hey, that was kind of cool. Let's keep doing it. You know, evolve from there. You know, gets crazier, gets more serious, but not in a bad way. You know, it's never something I didn't want it to turn into, but it's something I didn't expect it to turn into.
Yeah.
You know,
didn't have like high expectations or hopes.
Yeah.
It was just like,
Yeah.
oh, this resonates with people. Maybe I should put together another record, or like just see where it goes.
Yeah. You know, that's always a good feeling.
Yeah. Having it a little bit more open-ended versus like, because I remember growing up, it was like every band I was like, this is the band that needs to tour the world and do all these crazy things. And then it's like, actually, we're not that good. Like, and then break up, go to the next band. And then I remember I was chatting with someone on another podcast where it's like, how long you're in, playing in bands and doing, just being in this underground DIY music, your expectations, change year to year. So there could be 1 year where you're like, we want to just grind it out. We want to be the busiest band ever. And then maybe the next year you're like, actually, like, we want to take some time off, and, so-and-so just had a kid, or whatever it is. So, but like you said, like having low expectations to be pleasantly surprised is kind of how it happened.
Yeah. And I mean, at the time when, we were in our younger years, like we were just getting into like how much streaming was like a thing. So like that's all new to that. This was before that was like a huge thing.
Right.
So like there's a million fucking bands out there. This one band from Texas, nobody's gonna care. Like, whatever, let's just play some fucking shows, have fun. If something happens, let's fucking, roll with it. But, we never expected anything, and we never we still don't take it for granted.
For sure.
It's something we love, and we're glad we get to do, you know.
Yeah. So, just I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast as far as the first time seeing you guys, and what caught my eye immediately was like, just the sonic nature of your band is like this blend, like this perfect blend of like really early, like, dad metal music and like all the nuances that like what people like about like core music nowadays. Um, so I was going back in time and I was seeing I think I saw a flyer on your Instagram where it was like I am and it said Texas Beatdown. And I was like, I would not say I am is like a beatdown band by any
Dude,
means.
we have gotten labeled every genre there ever has been. Any genre you can think of, we've been fucking named it. Right. I swear. I remember looking at a video and someone said we were Wigger Slam. I was like, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I don't even know any other bands in that genre. I don't know what that sounds like.
Yeah, honestly. They call like nasty and malevolence and shit like that. Oh, okay. You know, like that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, all right, bro. Yeah, they call us everything and anything, and I denounce all of it.
Well, since we're just on that topic, is that kind of how Texas Death, like, you guys have a song?
That's exactly how it happened. We were writing Memento Mori, the EP, and I had thought of it, and that's when I started like using the phrase whatever Texas Death. I was like, man, I'm so sick of being called like all these crazy stupid genres. Like, we're Texas Death. That's what we are.
Right.
And you know what's funny is kids will come up to me like at merch tables and like those fucking stupid questions like, what do you think you guys sound like? Like, what do you mean? This is my band. You're asking me what I think we sound like? First of all, I don't know what you're saying.
Right.
And then second of all, I tell them, I'm like, yeah, we're Texas Death. And they're like, no, but like, what are you?
Yeah, what's
like,
an actual
genre?
Yeah, no,
like
no.
What are you? Like, what's the genre? And I'm like, fuck off. Like, we're Texas Death. Yeah, like, I'm not giving you anything more than that.
Yeah.
You know? And that goes with like, genres are obviously necessary. You know, they're a thing. So to say that genres are stupid is stupid.
Yeah.
You know, they're a thing. They're in place. They need to be there. But all these crazy subgenres that get so like people care too much, I guess, is what is the main thing. You know?
Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't be the defining factor on whether you listen to a band or not. If they're metalcore, hardcore, you know, it doesn't fucking matter.
Right.
Like, I get that they're, you know, label whatever you want, but don't dictate what you listen to based off that.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's huge, honestly. I just last week released a podcast with a band from I hate that is it from Germany? Somewhere in Europe. But they were expressing on how tough it is, just being a band from Europe. Everyone labels them as like a Eurocore band. And it's like, I don't.
Yeah, and like
that sounds so like, dumb.
Yeah, man. It's crazy that you can be in a hole when you're like we're this band. Like, if a band comes out and be like, we're the best metalcore band ever, and they print on it like metalcore this, metalcore this, metalcore that, you like, it almost feels like you pigeonhole yourself to where you're like, you can only be a fucking metalcore band for the rest of your life.
Right.
You know, y'all can't evolve, y'all can't do anything. You're a metalcore band. You know, it's just, I feel like bands and people just take too much. They think too much about that instead of the music.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Like,
it takes away from it.
The coin is two-sided. I'm sure there's a lot of bands who are like, saying New York hardcore. While that has a legendary title to it, I'm sure there's a lot of really bad New York hardcore bands,
Yeah.
Just by the nature
of
things.
Yeah. Just because they're a genre, it doesn't make them good. It doesn't.
Right.
Those two don't add up.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we, not like it was a mystery, but I appreciate the connection between, because,
yeah.
As soon as it was like, that was your guys' intro for a long time. And even when I saw you guys last at Snow and Flurry, it was on one of the
Yeah.
amps, and I was like, oh, this shit is like just it's
Yeah.
so sick. So anyways, you guys have always, it's kind of cool because a lot of the music that you have definitely leans more on the metal side, but I see like the hardcore community at large like really being like, yeah, this stuff slams.
Yeah.
Were you guys like kind of always playing to like hardcore kids growing up, and that's how that evolution happened, or has the audiences you played to been mixed and everything in the works there?
Mhm. So when we first started playing, maybe it was because we started playing with all the bands that were in the hardcore scene, or like we just didn't know like there were two different or three different, four different scenes, whatever. But that's just what we found, I guess, is the hardcore scene. So we started playing shows with there, and from there for a while it was like, okay, nobody gives a shit about this metal band, whatever, fuck you. But those are the only shows we knew of. So we were like, okay, let's just keep fucking playing them. Fuck it. And over the years, it was kind of like, okay, these guys are these guys are sticking it out. Like, all right, and that's when About Memento Mori came out, and then that's when we're like, okay, we're a part of this. We're here, and so I think that carried on. Well, obviously within the style of music, because it's always in there. But we're all metal guys, like by nature. That's majority what we listen to, but we grew up playing those types of shows, and we still, we try to do a mixed balance when especially when we're doing tours, because it's always, I feel like you shouldn't keep your audience, so like I said, in a hole. You got to broaden it.
Right.
I feel like if you play, do one or two metal tours, and then do a hardcore tour, do a metal tour, then do a metalcore tour, then do a deathcore tour, whatever. It's always, you always got to keep your palette open.
Right.
I feel like that's definitely helped us in both crowds, both areas of places that we play.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've only gotten the chance to see you guys twice, but I guess the first, I guess if you wanted to, absolutely say the genre is like the first time was like definitely like a metalcore tour with Acacia Strain Left Behind, and
Yeah.
then you guys playing Snow and Flurry was definitely like more leaning on a hardcore festival, but just like,
Yeah.
I think you guys being the more metal band of that like string of bands was, worked in your favor to kind of let people not just
Yeah.
like, oh, here's another hardcore band. It was like, oh, like,
Yeah. That's how we've always been that metal band that plays hardcore tours, hardcore shows, hardcore whatever.
Yeah.
We've always been that band. We're not a hardcore band, but we fucking play that shit all day long.
Yeah.
And always have for
Right.
some fucking reason. So,
Yeah.
but it's cool. I love it.
This is just a question I thought off the top of my head, but is there a hardcore band, or just a vocalist or a style of music that maybe in the forefront hasn't been in the influence game, but is there something that you have like, for vocals, like always listening to something prior to like hype you up, or just like, like let's do more two-steppy stuff because that like actually, isn't common in metal, but it works for what we're doing. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah. I mean, I know because Tom obviously he writes all the guitars, and him, and like I said, his palette's completely fucking, it's spread everywhere.
Right.
So like I said, we all listen to it. So yeah, I mean, that's all we do. We sit there and jam bands, and I feel like it's a subconscious thing. It's not really like hey, you should put this here because we should have a two-step here.
Right.
It's more of like we do it in a flow sense. So like we're writing, he's writing, and it comes out as like it's more of like a moment, not like hey, put this type of beat here.
Right. Yeah.
You
No,
know?
that makes sense. Yeah, and it's really cool. Like I was saying, the metalcore thing, the hardcore festival, and then like I guess the last fest that you guys were a part of was definitely like way on the metal side with bands like Spite and I'm trying to
Yeah.
Varials. I think we're on it as well. Just a sea of just
Orthodox.
orthodox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
cool that you guys have been able to, hey, this is who we are. If you're gonna fuck
Yeah.
with it, like let's
Yeah.
go.
And it also helps that we don't really fit in.
Right.
We don't really fit in any certain. I mean, we don't really fit in with a death metal tour. We don't really fit in with a hardcore or a metalcore tour. Like we're it's kind of a weird mix to where it's like you don't really know, which I like. I think
Right.
I think it leaves more to the imagination whenever you're listening to a band.
Has there ever been a death metal tastemaker who's been like, you can't call yourselves a death metal band if you don't sound like this or you play with all these hardcore bands?
I mean, I've never ran into somebody that's actually said that to me.
Right.
But props to you if you fucking do it. So, but I mean, I've never met somebody say that to me. Yeah. If you did, I'd probably smack them.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's not something I'm trying to encourage. I'm just like, like you're saying, it's pretty just ridiculous on how like people will try to rationalize things when it's like just listen to the music and just have a good time. So
yeah, that's what we're all here for.
Yeah. So ironically, just a couple days before recording this podcast, Hard to Kill, I guess turned 2 years old. Which feels like yesterday, honestly, as far as like when I was like, oh, here's the new album, but then I was like, oh, I was living here at that time, and I remember when I was like first listening to it.
Yeah.
But as far as like things on the horizon on the I Am sphere, you guys, kind of during, I think it was just before COVID hit, but you guys signed with E1 Heavy.
Yeah.
So are you guys? I'm sure you're a band that's always turning out things. So is there something? And I've seen a little behind the scenes. Like behind the scenes is very generous considering
we've made very few very subtle things.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah, they were very subtle.
But yeah, is there anything that you want to share as far as either a new album, something that you guys are working on, and just how that's going?
Yeah, we actually recorded the album in July, and then we went back for another session actually last week. I just flew in a few days ago, flew back because we were finishing up vocals. Gotcha. But yeah, we got new music coming out on E1. It's kind of weird. It's our first I think 1126 was a good thing for us because it opened up a lot of doors for us, but it just kind of feels weird being on a major label, if you want to call it that. Yeah. It's someone who has stature in music community, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm excited for that. I'm excited to release that, and it's definitely this is going to be the most nerve-wracking release for sure. That when it comes time to put out, it's very. We definitely. I don't know what's the right fucking word, man. It's almost like there is no words for like how we went about this one. I don't know. Okay. It's weird. It's different. We didn't put ourselves in a cell and like contain. We kind of let it just go. Okay. So it's pretty crazy. I love it. I think it's amazing. So we'll see what everybody thinks whenever it gets out. So
yeah, well, as long as there is, I'm sure with I'm sure with any release, there's always that. Okay, how can we push the envelope a little bit more? How can we take things a little bit further? But obviously, there's going to be, it's very uncommon for bands just to go hard left turn or hard right turn into an entirely different genre. But I feel like, just off what you were saying, like, my mind starts to brainstorm and get all like, oh, like, I know the I Am sound, so how has that organism grown bigger? So that's very exciting to hear.
That's kind of. Sorry, my cat was almost getting in the frame.
Oh, you're all good.
But no, that's kind of how it is. It's nice not having a barrier It's nice
Right.
because I feel like especially with us, we have. I'm not gonna say like a unique sound where no one does what we do, but like it's unique to us to where we can expand on that and make it bigger than what it is.
Right.
Because that's essentially what we wanted to do with this album too. We wanted to take Hard to Kill and make a monster out of that.
Right.
It wasn't just like a hey, let's just do another Hard to Kill, or let's make an album that's this style and let's do it like this.
Right.
It was more like let's take this and just create this beast.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm very, very excited for that. And like you're saying, like I think bands hit that like that label that's kind of like not middle of the road, but like something that's like, okay, like this is something to, get us to that next level. But like, you know, it's kind of like I haven't heard of lots of bands being signed to E1, and maybe it is because it is that big of a metal label. And when I clicked on it, I'm like, oh, Within the Ruins? Okay, yeah, it's at that level. So that's
Yeah, because they
very
got High on Fire and Crowbar and
yeah.
a bunch of crazy old bands.
You guys did something with Crowbar recently, like a live stream
Yeah,
event.
yeah, we did a live stream with them. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was pretty weird doing like it was it was weird when we got the offer for it, and because it was just like okay, like pretty random, but let's do it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so we got together and started getting everything ready. And it's just it's not even like a music video. Whenever you're doing a music video, like, okay, we're gonna do this like 10 or 12 times, play the set, film it. It was one shot, one audio, one video. You can't fuck up. Like they're like it's just like here, and there's no audience. There's camera guy, and we're just like, all right, we got to make this a good ass performance in one shot after we haven't played with each other in fucking 6 months.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just it was pretty crazy, but it was badass. We got to you know decorate the whole room and create a vibe and a mood. So it was pretty badass. I
Yeah.
had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, I almost think that like Code Orange kind of being the first band to kind of do this whole like live stream and kind of set.
I was just talking with someone about that the other day. I was like, man, isn't it crazy that Code Orange is the band that like made this live stream shit like go? Like
Yeah,
they're pretty much the pioneers of it, which is pretty crazy.
yeah, and
It's crazy to think like a metal.
yeah, and just like at the time, I think everyone was just like, what's happening with the world? There was a lot of uncertainty. A lot of people were just like
Yeah.
bummed as far as like canceling tours and their jobs, in the works of that.
Yeah.
But them doing this live stream event and going as hard, if not harder than they normally would, kind of said as like, okay, if my band's gonna do a live stream, it needs to be that like fuck this whole like
Yeah. Top
bad
tier.
year that we're all having. Let's
Like,
just try and have the best
Yeah.
time that we can. So, yeah, it's
Yeah. I remember watching that first
insane.
one they did, and it was just it was incredible.
Yeah.
It was crazy the shit they did.
I'm honestly thinking about trying to either do some kind of podcast or a list of like the most like monumental like and this is all subjective as far as like
Yeah.
me and your lists would probably be different, but just like the most very crucial and important moments in like hardcore history, and that moment is for sure on that list.
That shit stamped in the ground. That's a fucking moment.
Absolutely.
And I just thought that was just crazy that a band like that did that, because I mean you're seeing all these major artists do it now.
Right.
Artists that are on the radio all day. Those artists are starting to do live streams. So it's crazy to me that they were they pioneered it.
Yeah,
It's
they're
so
on
sick.
like GQ
It's so
magazine.
sick.
I'm just like, what
Yeah,
the
it's
hell
so
is
fucking
happening?
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to like Code Orange to be happy about that.
Yeah. Honestly.
That's a win for the whole scene, for everybody,
Yeah, just having that much eyes, especially on the normie world, to be like, hey, here's a band that's metal, we're getting back to subgenres
Yeah,
here. But they did
that's
this
what I'm
event and
saying.
this many
Like you
people
have
tuned
Billie
in.
Eilish's, yeah, you have Billie Eilish's manager like looking at. She said, "Oh, this Code Orange live stream," and then they see that. Oh yeah, let's do this.
Right.
This man did it. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's truly, a weird year, but it's really inspiring to see some of the innovations that bands, labels,
Yeah,
booking people, recording studios, just everyone's just like pushed, like everyone's under pressure to like still do stuff, and a lot of
yeah,
stuff is like new and like
yeah.
never done before. So
It's like that shit when you're pushed against the wall. Some of the best shit happens.
yeah,
It's it's exactly that.
yeah.
You know, none of us have a choice on whether we can play shows or not. So you have to find another way. You know, it's you can't just not do anything.
Right.
It's not good for the soul. It's not good for anybody.
Yeah. We got a little off topic, but as far as
Yeah, we
the
did. Sorry.
no, that's rambling is encouraged. But
Yeah,
as far as
yeah.
the new record is concerned, are you in a position where you can share any details of rough timelines of when around that's coming out, or how many
For
songs is
sure,
on it?
for sure in 2021. For sure, it's definitely not going to be this year.
Yeah.
But we might get something out towards the end of the year or super early in the next year. That's kind of all up for debate. Kind of we just gotta plan things out. But as far as the record, there's 11 songs on it,
Okay.
so that's more. Yeah, most we've done for a record, and it's pretty. It's definitely a concept record. It's not just a song, different topic. Like it's a concept record, which is the first one we've done, which
Oh,
is
okay.
really fucking cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was just so much more effort and time put into this record that is just, and that's why like you said, the COVID thing. It's a for some it's a blessing in disguise. You're getting pushed against the wall and you're getting the best shit. So it's like we have no other fucking choice but to write and take time and put our best work out.
Yeah.
So I think that's you're gonna be I think you're gonna be able to tell on the new record.
So that is very exciting. We're gonna change topics a little bit here.
Yeah,
But Texas has kind of been in the conversation a lot in the last few months, just with the unfortunate passing of Riley of Power Trip,
yeah.
and I'm blanking on his name, so forgive
Wade.
me. Wade
Yeah,
from
Wade from
from
Iron Age.
Iron Age.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people have been, talking about, call it Texas heavy music, a little bit more. But
Mhm.
I guess I wanted to ask you on, how you and the rest of the band and just like your friends overall have been, working through that, because, like I've lost people in hardcore, and what immediately happens, I find, is everyone like, okay, like let's figure out ways that we can celebrate this person's life, raise money for the family. Like it's
Yeah.
instantaneous. But now that we're currently in a world where we can't rush to those things, even just thinking about the amount of shows that would have happened for raising money for Black Lives Matter and protesters that essentially
Yeah.
didn't.
What it could have been, you
Right.
know.
But again, let's try and stay on topic. But yeah, as far as like being such a formative member of just like the Texas heavy scene, how has that been weighing on you?
It's been pretty rough. It's a detrimental blow to everybody who is involved in music in Texas. Obviously it didn't matter even if you liked Power Trip or not. Like
Right.
you knew how important it was, especially with Wade too. You know, without Iron Age, it wouldn't have been. So it's just, and our guitar player Tom, he I think he knew them personally, and he's been having a way more rough time than most of us, specifically in our band. But our hearts and thoughts and prayers or whatever go out to them for sure, because I mean, to everybody, it sucks. It's not a good feeling when someone of that stature who's done so much for Texas music, you know, for them to just pass it, just especially with all the circumstances with this year,
Right.
it just kind of, I feel like all that with it weighs super heavy. I've never seen someone who has died in, you know, the hardcore community or metal community do so much like they have for Wade and Riley.
Yeah.
Like the amount of support they have for those guys is just, it's insane. It's unmatched.
Right.
You know, there's, I don't know. It sucked. It still sucks, but they'll never be forgotten. Everybody knows that they're legends over here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nothing. They're not going to be forgotten anytime.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, like I think a lot of people, you I don't know if Texas bands, like there was this theme when I was discovering a few other bands where it was like bands from that area would always put like TX in their like either Instagram names, or like they would actually
Yeah.
put it in their band names
Mhm.
of all things. But
Yeah.
like, do you feel like Texas is kind of like a weird part of the country that wasn't or didn't get that recognition, and then like when all that happened, just all these new eyes kind of flooded and was out of talking about Power Trip and Iron Age, but then out of through the conversations was finding out about new music. I'm just kind of curious on how that hopefully like expanded the awareness of your scene.
Yeah, I think it definitely did, because even if you didn't know, you would look and see who they support and who they follow, you know, and who they listen to. So it definitely opened up, I'm sure, a lot of people's fucking eyes. But even then, I think Texas has always been kind of that prominent music culture. You know, it's always had that, and I feel like everybody recognizes it. Not everybody likes it, but everybody kind of recognizes it. You know, it's always been like, yeah, that's a Texas band.
Oh, okay.
You know, that's a Texas band. But like, it's weird because you know you don't really think of many other states like that. Besides, like, you know, Texas, you know, California, New York, you can say, oh yeah, that's a California band, that's a New York band, or that's a Florida band maybe. But like, yeah, you like, you know, an Idaho band or a Iowa band, you don't really know like what that is, or it doesn't have like a certain sound. It could, you know, I just might be not knowledgeable on it. But as far as I know, it's always had that kind of staple of like, you know, these bands are from Texas.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. Is there any bands from Texas that you feel like haven't hit that like recognition as far as like them putting out either a brand new band or one that's been around for a while that more people need to know about?
dude, there's this band from San Antonio, Texas called Life Cycles,
Okay.
and it's a crossover thrash band, but they are the best musicians and the best live band. And just, I don't, their music is incredible.
Okay.
And they're just, you know, they're a bunch of cool ass dudes who, you know, I think two of them are dads. And they do live streams by themselves. Like nobody really kind of like, you know, gives them the time of day, I feel like, outside of Texas,
Oh, okay.
which is crazy to me because they do a lot. They put a
Mhm.
lot of work in, but like they kind of stick to San Antonio, I guess. So it's, you know, they're in that realm.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anybody who watches this or listens to this, listen to a band called Life Cycles from San Antonio, Texas. They deserve all the fucking love.
Well, as soon as you say crossover, I was like, all right, you got my attention. I'm
Yeah,
always on
it's
the hunt for new bands like
yeah,
that.
that is Texas. Most of Texas is just crossover. So
Yeah, I think that was the first time that I met you in Calgary. You were like, "Yeah, we're like a crossover band." But yeah, like that. I think crossover is kind of like this loosely used
yeah, it's
term
pretty
where it's
broad.
like crossing over between two genres. It doesn't need to
Yeah,
necessarily be thrash and this. It could
yeah,
be
yeah.
yeah.
You know, there's crossovers between different. I mean, that's how fucking subgenres get made. Whatever.
we
You
keep
know, you
we
just
keep
cross.
coming back to that.
Yeah,
Um,
you keep doing it.
Yeah, I definitely want to plug Fists of Fury as I've
Yeah,
been
Fists of
listening
fucking
to that
Fury.
album I
Yeah.
think I'm blanking on the guitar player's name, but he was sending me all the singles, and
Hmm.
I think they released the album and 2 singles all in the same month. So I was like trying to curate my monthly recap list. I was like, dude, you're giving me
Yeah.
too many good songs to choose from. He's like, I don't think that's an issue. You, and,
Yeah.
and you were actually on one of those tracks that I
Here.
was
Yeah. Yeah.
stoked
I
to
was super
see.
stoked whenever I got to do that. Yeah. Shit. That's another band. That's another band that they're fairly new too, and they're just making badass music. You know how much I wished when I was a new band that we made badass music. I feel like that's I feel like that's a thing of the past now. It feels like almost. I feel like you had so many bad bands back in the day,
Right.
like, you know, 8 years ago. And now, like, it seems almost every new band that comes out, it's like, you're solid, you write good music. This doesn't sound like you're doing everything right off the bat. This is crazy to me.
Yeah, like you were saying, like there's certain bands that I was in that I'd rather stay buried versus trying to
Yeah, I feel like
have
that's
that a
not a
part of
thing
my
anymore.
story.
I feel like nobody says that anymore. Like, oh, I used to play in that. Like, I don't really talk about that. It's like, no, you don't hear that anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, yeah, I played in that fucking band. Like, it was sick. Like, oh yeah, it's cool. At
Yeah.
least in like people who like that, specific type of music.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, if that's maybe an example of the internet and there's just like so much influence and things to take away from.
Yeah,
Because yeah, when I was in some of those local bands, it's like obviously the internet existed, but I wasn't like always just surrounded by like bands from all over. It was like kind of who's
yeah,
doing what in my local scene and what do I like and what I don't like. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I remember. I mean, all I had to listen to were burned CDs that I had,
yeah,
or the few CDs that I could buy whenever I was younger. So like, I feel like now you have a plethora of bands that you can take influence from, or get knowledgeable on, and
yeah,
I feel like everybody's doing it, obviously, because all I had were my fucking 30 or 40 CDs, and that was my music collection that I had at the time.
right.
Like that was, and the few songs I could try to stream on my shit flip phone. So I don't. It was like impossible to stream music back
Yeah,
then on a flip phone. It was so
yeah.
hard.
We're gonna change topics to a hard right turn
All
topic
right.
change wise, but I've seen that you're very into bikes and motorcycles and things like that, and obviously
Yeah.
that kind of like fits within the overall I am vibe as far as being like motorcycle metal.
Yeah.
But tell me about have you always ridden bikes growing up? Have you always wanted to? Did you just watch a show and some guy rolling a bike and you're like, that's who I want to be?
No, so I mean, my dad rode a few bikes. I remember seeing that growing up, and he took me on the back of one. And I've always liked it. It was always like, okay, yeah, that's cool. It'd be cool to get a bike one day, like
Right.
whatever. Until I got into my, early 20s, and have a friend that has a really badass chopper, and I used to work with him. And so I saw him riding once. I was like, fuck, man. I was like, I need to get a fucking bike.
Right.
So next day I fucking go get my license or whatever, and then the next day I go buy a bike,
Mm-hmm.
and then it fucking ruined my life. Yeah, don't fucking do it. You'll spend all your time, all your money
Right.
on it.
Yeah.
But it's the greatest shit. I love it. I love it so much.
Right.
It's given me something to be stoked about besides like music and all this other, which I think is important to find something other than what your main defining thing is. You do like, if your main thing that you do is music, like find something else that's like not having anything to do with it.
Right.
It kind of sets a good balance on, like, I don't know, but it's definitely taken over my life. It's yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure with like you were saying, like having a couple things that you're passionate about and not just being so hyper focused on one thing is,
Yeah.
one thing, a pandemic hits and you can't play shows. I'm sure you've been working on your bike and riding it way more than you have in past
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel like that's the key to being remotely happy, is being busy and finding don't limit yourself to like one thing that you like to do, and keep trying to find new ways to get excited. You know, because I mean everything gets boring at some point.
Yeah.
You know, there's always going to be a point where it's kind of dies down. You know, same with music. You know, everybody. I mean, for most people, when they get their later years in life, they're like, yeah, I'm not going to really go to shows anymore. It's not really. You know, I'm kind of old.
Yeah.
I was like, so it's always good to have different avenues on shit that you like. It keeps your mind stimulated, keeps you happy, excited. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely glad I'm into it.
Yeah. You know, is Texas a good state or a good part of the world to be riding bikes? Because I have friends from back home in Winnipeg where they're very into bikes and ride them into the barbershop all the time. But when there's 6 months of winter, it doesn't. It's the
That's building season.
yeah right yeah
Yep. That's building season.
yeah. Is there certain months, I guess, in a place like Texas where it's probably a lot more forgiving on the warmer weather side of things? Is like riding season over, or do you still have like a couple
I mean,
months?
it is for sure. I mean, we're pussies in Texas when it comes to cold, so we don't. Yeah, we're not. It's once like December hits, it's almost like,
Right.
I'll wait for till February. But that, like I said, that's when a lot of people build their bikes or do something they've been wanting to do to it, and which it's good because it keeps you busy with that actual project, with not just writing it. Which that's also part of it too. It's different than just like average Joe walking in and buying a new motorcycle off a Harley lot. It's you're building something. You have to take time and you have to work on it. It's not something you can kind of just push off, or else you'll miss something and you'll fucking die going down the highway. So it's pretty important that you are very like
Meticulous
committed
around
to it.
that.
Yeah, it's almost like a new way of life. Like you have to like make sure it's all like good, or else your life depends on it.
Is there a little bit of a divide between people that build bikes and people that just buy them from Harley Davidson?
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost there's almost like this whole it's like music, with everything. There's a social status, there's social parties, there's different groups. So like like obviously like most guys who ride choppers are like, I mean, mostly if you ride two wheels, like cool, that's fucking sick. It's a lot just to even do that. So that's fucking cool. I'm not super, I don't really care, but a lot of people are just like, if you don't fucking build your bike, then fuck you. Which is cool too, because fuck them. But
Yeah.
it's almost like you're like I built this fucking bike. You can't even change the oil on your bike. It's just like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that there's always this like you said, like there's a community aspect. I remember I was working at a place, and my boss's my old boss's daughter totaled their car, so he had all this like money to get a new car through insurance, so he bought a Jeep. And then he was just like getting obsessed with like Jeep culture, because everyone who has like Jeeps, they'll like wave to each other. They'll be like, "Oh, you got these kind of rims? Oh, nice job."
That's it almost takes over, man.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just I'm sure, and obviously there's a lot more pride that you can take off of something like, I built this like gaming PC versus like, I bought this at Best Buy. So
yeah, there's always, and like I say, like you said with the gaming PC, it's with almost anything. If there's a way to do it that you feel more proud about, or it's it takes more time, it's in the end it's gonna make for a better outcome, I feel like.
Right. If there's anyone that's listening that has always wanted to get a bike or has thought about getting a bike originally, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give, as far as like, before you go and drop your credit card or whatever it is, to think about critically before making that choice?
Make sure you're willing to die on a motorcycle. make sure you're okay with the fact that you could die on it. Right. That's my biggest thing. Because people buy bikes all the time and they'll ride it for a month and they're like, like it's not really into it. It's, scary, whatever, all this stuff. So before you buy a bike, sit there and ask yourself, like, are you okay? Are you willing to be thrown off this thing? Because it's going to happen at some point. It's not like they always say it's not if, it's when. Right. So you have to be okay with knowing that it's going to happen at some point. Mm-hmm. And if you're not okay with it, don't fucking get a bike, Don't do it.
Yeah, you don't want a nervous biker beside
you. That's the worst. A nervous biker is the absolute worst.
Yeah. Have you been thrown off the bike yourself?
Yeah, twice. One was down the alley. I was finishing building it, and one of the bolts was stripped on my handlebars, so it came off when I was taking off. So, okay. Yeah, it was fucked. And then a few months ago, actually, this guy stopped right in the middle of the road, slammed into his bumper. My wife fell off the back of the bike. I went down the fucking hill. Oh, luckily, we weren't banged up too bad. Just a few scratches, but yeah, it's pretty surreal. It gets real really quick.
Right.
It's not like a game.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those things where you get a skateboard or you get some kind of like, electric longboard or whatever. It's like the fun level maybe increases, but the risk also increases at the same time.
You got to acknowledge that, and you got to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Risk versus reward. It's how it always is.
A question I had here was, will we ever get a proper motorcycle rev on an I Am song at any point?
We actually talked about it for this album, so we're still in the mixing process. So it could be in there.
All right, could be in there. Hopefully, I spoke that into it.
Who did it? Was it Judas Priest that did that?
Oh,
I think Judas Priest went on stage with a bike. I think it was Judas Priest.
Well, I
don't remember, but it was fucking badass.
I know this guy Dan from Seattle. He's like a photographer, and he has a photo on his website. And I don't know the band, but it's this iconic photo that I've seen so many times. And someone's in the mosh pit with like a bike, and everyone's circling around like, "What's happening?"
That's funny as fuck.
Because everyone jokes about like, "Oh yeah, you bring a bike into the pit," but like this motherfucker actually did that. So
he did.
I'll try and find it and send it to you. After this.
Yeah, please do.
Well, Andrew, this we're kind of getting close to the time where we should start wrapping it up. So I'll ask you my final question. So the last tail end piece that I ask all my guests is a favorite mosh story that they would like to share. So that doesn't necessarily need to be like you did this or someone did this to you or it happened at an I Am show. Whatever is the very first thing to your mind is how we'll say goodbye.
Okay. So when we were on the Nomad tour with Kubakan, No Zodiac, and Left Behind a few years ago, we played this game called Mosh Paper Scissors. And so so the goal is you pick the worst part of a song, like a part that you don't mosh to, like it's some weird shit you're not supposed to mosh to. Right. And if someone asks you want to play mosh paper scissors, you have to say yes if you're like in the game. Right. So you go up to someone during a really weird awkward part and be like, all right, mosh paper scissors, and do mosh paper scissors or whatever. And if they lose, they have to go and mosh right then and there. Like, no matter what, it could be a silence. Like, it could be they switching over.
It's just like dead silence, and they're like, thanks for coming out. And then someone's like, kook.
Yeah. So there was, I think there was maybe some local band. I don't even remember who it was. But we were in New Jersey, I think. And I was playing with Rolo, the vocalist of No Zodiac. And I got him on it, and it was such a weird part. It wasn't even like I don't even know what it was, but it wasn't something that
it's not a musical part you can describe. It's like you have to hear it to be like,
move to it. Yeah. I had him do it, and he lost. He had to go fucking do that shit. It was the funniest shit I've ever seen.
That's hilarious.
But that game's entertaining. That game is very entertaining.
Well, definitely gonna play that when we get shows back.
Yeah, it'll make your friends real uncomfortable, especially the ones who like don't really like to mosh or move. So they already
True.
go in super awkward, and
It's
they're
not like, all
"Fuck."
right, let's do it. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't even. I'm too old for this shit. Or whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's pretty
Yeah.
funny.
Well, Andrew, this has been a blast.
No, yeah, thank you for having me again.
Yeah, of course.
I always love it.
Yeah, and like I said, like I think, your band's music is like this kind of refreshing taste as far as like, like you were saying, being its own thing, not being stuck in one genre. I lost Andrew's video. I'm waiting until he comes back.
Can't believe it, man. And I was like, okay, my phone's on a good charge. I should be all right. I shouldn't have to charge it. Fucking Zoom.
Yeah. Well, maybe just a battery drainer. But anyways, Andrew, thank you for coming on the podcast with me and jamming and talking I am and metal and kind of everything in between. I don't just say this because you're on the podcast, but you guys are a band that I've always appreciated and have been stoked on since I found out about you guys. And it seems like you guys are always doing stuff different and staying, in your own lane and doing your thing. Yeah. So, is there anything that you want to shout out, plug, send people after this podcast wraps up? The floor is yours for whatever you want. Whatever
as far as new albums go, there's Chamber just put out a new record. Boundaries just put out a new record. This band from Oklahoma, Omen, they were on that tour with Soul and Flurry.
Yeah,
they just put out a new
OKC Boys.
I think it's EP or record. Yeah. So I mean, there's a bunch of good music to check out. Just everybody be safe and sane. Don't be at each other's throats all the time. Yeah. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, be good to one another so we can be sick at shows with one another again sooner than later. Thank you again, Andrew, for coming on the podcast with me, and I am looking forward to the day that we can cross paths again and I can hear the new songs live. That would be sick.
Yeah, me as well. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Of
course.
It was a blast.